Hello, and welcome to a video today. Whatever happens, wherever this goes, as always, use your own discernment, join with intention, and allow the messages to be received with an open heart. So I don't know how much cards will come into play. This is just what I had been up to. And this is part of a reading that I done yesterday. There's something recently with I'll do a reading and then I'll eventually tuck the reading away but keep the cards that I was dealt, you could say, and then finding another message that wants to come through the same channel, I think is one way to put it. It's kind of okay. Where do I want to start? I wrote this a little while ago today. And as soon as I had finished writing it, a friend messaged me, and then we got into a conversation, and then they gave me reading recommendations. So I look forward to that. But in this, when was that? Do you remember this? These right? And then this had also come through 423, 423. Last night, I drove myself to the most eastern point in all of Turtle Island, the very first place the sun kisses. And as I was standing there watching the waves come in, I looked over and I saw Cabot Tower on Signal Hill. And if you're not familiar with Cabot Tower, that is where the first transatlantic wireless transmission. Words are slipping now. But essentially there was a message received in 1901 was the letter S from, I think it was Cornwall in the UK. I could be wrong on that. But either way, it really got me thinking about waves and energy motion and transmitting. And I was thinking about these things, and when I say thinking, it's also sensing, it's also knowing, it's intuiting, it's feeling, it's I say, I think, I speak with a very it's not foggy nuance, but it's blurry. It's the idea of you're looking out over a cliff and you see land parallel with the horizon, and you see fog, and you know that there is more land. You know that there is more fog, but at a certain point it ends and it's just ocean. Tick to that. And so all of these things were flowing through me. And then I drove over to Signal Hill and was looking over the ocean, and it's at that point, it's just black. There's nothing. You can't see anything. But if I keep going in a straight line, which is not natural, but let's just say, depending on where I'm standing, that signal could hit Greenland. It may hit Ireland. But if I aim it just right, I'm able to connect back with southern Britain, which is where my ancestors come from for over 1,000 years, is as far as I've been able to track. And there's something really interesting. The region that my family, my my physical, my bloodline comes from is very close to Stonehenge. And I've been looking into and learning more about druids and having an understanding that that may be where a lot of this knowing, this connection, this sense of ethics comes from on like in earthly formats. It doesn't even have to extend into reincarnation or past lives, although that could be a part of it, but there's something specifically about it's in the blood. And near Stonehenge, and I'm, look into these things, find your own facts on this, right? All of this is me telling moments of clarity that have risen within my body, my mind, my heart, that I'm now using as wool or yarn or thread to stitch together a cloak of knowing. So these are relational to me based on previous stitches I have placed, right? And that area, Stonehenge-esque, is it Greenboro, something like that, is where some say the lost lands of Avalon are. And you can look into Avalon and you can find connections with starseeds. So that is a whole, that's an interesting path to look into. It's also interesting that we've just, and this is astrology, so don't quite quote me, but it's a 14-year cycle has come to an end as I've come back to where I'm from, and I haven't lived in 14 years. And isn't it interesting that this piece of land is called the Avalon Peninsula? And as I steady my signal, my outreach, I can connect directly with my bloodline. And all that is between us is water. Although looking at Cabot Tower, I know that signals can be transmitted through under the water. Despite the water, connections can be formed. And so I have all of these interesting thoughts and sensations going on last night, and I get home and I watched a video talking about druids, and there was a lot of interesting things in that video, and I'll find that and I'll link that in the description down below. I've kind of been building these parallel playlists of videos that I think would be information or knowledge that I've been threading together that could be useful for other people to also align into a lens. And so I might put that playlist down below, I might not, but I watched that, and that was very interesting. And through that, I then watched a video that was, what was it? The first channel was Vox Occulta, and the second one was Video something. That like the title was like a secret kept for 6,000 years, something like that. Again, I'll link it down below. And it was, okay, we're starting off, we're basing in with sacred geometry. Gotcha. We're finding roots of our 60 degrees systems going into 360. Okay, got it. And then we're getting into numbers, and then this root number 432 kept coming back. And I said, that's really interesting. 423 has been coming through for me, and this sense of scrambling, of things are not necessarily coming in. Interesting. Now that I look at this, I see 4 and I see 3 2s. 4, 3, 2. They're I don't know how to explain it aside from like shapes, triangles, so yes, sacred geometry, and then numbers and connections with that have, like, my whole life been something that's felt like passive in my head, and I'm now understanding, oh, the whole time I've, you can say, been tuned in or been connected with or been channeling, and whatever words you want to use. And it's this interesting balance, kind of going nose deep into spirituality and esotericism, and finding these bridges of connections that are so prevalent and present in all areas of my life. Yeah. And knowing that it's not something that makes me special above other people's unique experiences. And we each have special and unique experiences that frame, insert action here, that frame how we communicate, how we connect, how we recognize one another. What had come through, and again, this was the beginning of a message I'd done previously, was signal fogging the message. Chanaru, caps lock versus lowercase. Both carry your signal as link via. Example, www. Kedo, intention required for passcode. And that, essentially, I was thinking about symbols. And if you type something in uppercase and lowercase, doesn't matter which is which, you switch it around, but you're typing that into like a URL, it does not care what is upper and what is lower. It receives the signal all the same, because you're not inscribing something, you're not logging into something, you are coordinating a placement within a virtual axis, you could say, in the internet. That's the words I'll use for that right now. But when you're signing into something, when you are uniquely plugging in, and there is a requirement for verification of how did you get here? How did you know how to come here? Do you know why you are here? There is this proof of purchase of your knowledge, this receipt that we can call a passcode or a password. And so I can type in gmail.com and all uppercase, lowercase, mix it up, doesn't matter. But unless I know the specific email address and then password to that email, I'm not able to enter the next place. I'm not able to pass this gate. And I've been viewing it as this recently if we're looking at Heart Nebula. And there being the end of our galaxy, but then there's actually a time rip warp, and then you can go through that to get to all of everything else. When I was watching these videos last night, and then it was talking about 6,000 years ago and ancient Mesopotamia and Sumeria, and then Anunnaki, and I was like, oh, okay. Again, I'd heard of Anunnaki, and I'm not here to be like the factual checking machine. All I'm saying is I watched a video on the internet and some synapses resonated with what my eyeballs viewed, right? I'm really wary of speaking honestly with spiritual knowings, because of how quick the parallel can intersect with coping. And this can be experienced as psychosis, as ignoring the world in front of you for the preference of the one that's just beyond the gate, that's just out of your reach. And then we forget our role here now. I also, interesting night, I also watched that movie Don't Look Up. And sure, all of the straightforward things of the political this, the political that, but it's also having that sense of knowing, although people around you don't know, don't want to know, don't see, don't want to see, reject it. It doesn't fit their values, their paradigm. It doesn't make sense in their world. Therefore, it is to be dismissed, and it is unwantedable. And the parallels of speaking through science with, you could say, like the realities of Earth's climate and activities at this time, and what that will lead to, and how we can acknowledge processes already in process, but I'm like, what's the other word? Interesting. I'm now hearing it as processes already in practice. So the earth knowing what to do as it needs to do it, and us as humans, our irritation at a natural process in progress, and how we take away the intention from Mother Earth and we claim her to be without her own cognition. And then I think about how there's a body of water on Turtle Island, I believe is located within the provincial borders of Ontario, that was recognized as, and look into this, the phrasing is very specific, like it's a legal case, so I don't want to misspeak, but I'm not going to look it up right now, about a body of water being recognized as having human rights or living rights, or that its existence is as a living creature, therefore its rights are to be taken into consideration. And the power in the changing of stories that comes with recognizing, but recognizing, remetabolizing this cognitive knowing of essence, of matter, of life, as two naturally flowing atoms bubbling next to one another, and how we as humans determine to give that meaning. And sometimes, going back to the very straightforward movie, Don't Look Up, sometimes the powers that be don't want truths or messages to be out there because that defers the path from profit. And if you think of the word profit, there are many ways to speak that and many ways to interpret meaning from that. Going back to this channeled message, this going to a website that is, it's like a train, but it's not the destination. It's the connector, right? And so us as, I'll say words, and if you disagree, that's cool. Us as humans that can receive these signals, there being two separate skills. There's traveling message and transcribing meaning. So there's the ability to act as the URL entry so that an energy, a knowing, a message, a spiral, something can be placed within us, and then we are able to carry this message forward. This carrying forward may include delivering the message, sharing it, amplifying it, looking into the signal's origin, where it came from, what for such a signal to be sent and delivered, what meaning does that have in this context over here? There's all of those things, right? Let's say the message that is, right? Okay, so let's just say the message is the alphabet. It is the Roman alphabet. It is A through Z. Now, everything that I just said of you could carry it forward, you could I'm wanting to say transmute. It can come within you, and then it can, whatever it is that's inside of you that is reformatting with that, etc., and that can be perhaps like a power charge to then pushing something through. There's that. But all of the ways I just mentioned, as I'm like struggling because I had to like pause for a second, and now I'm like, where was I? Talking about signals being disrupted. How interesting. So all of that URL passageways is not necessarily transcribing the message, translating the message. It's kind of like being given something, and then being able to recognize, this is something that I have been given. Okay, what do I do with this? I don't know, but I'm going to carry this somewhere else. I'm going to carry this to someone else who might know what to do with this. I'm not really sure what this is. Maybe I'll talk about how I see a lot of different pieces and describe what it looks like and what it feels like and the weight of it, and maybe play with it and see what it does, monitoring it, assessing it, witnessing it. I'm considering this in a lot of like scientific method, right? Of like, I'm going to observe this and see what this is. All of that is this one skill of traveling message. There is then transcribing meaning, translating. So the ability to feel these waves crash upon you and make meaning of them. So this message may be received and recognized by you, and then you can tell the story of it. Then you can find more meaning within it. Then the understanding of that meaning, connecting those dots, as I'm describing as breadcrumbs along the ocean floor, you're not just the like delivery person, you have a new role within messenger. It's not that don't shoot the messenger, someone just like delivering an envelope. The messenger is also the message. The messenger influences how the message is delivered, received, carried forward, etc., etc., etc. And so then that came to like if you can visualize trying to uncurl headphones back when everyone used headphones that had a long cord, you would plug into your device and you'd put them in your pocket and they'd be perfectly wound, and then you take them out and they're all kerjumbled, right? Thinking of that as a message in transit, as it's going through space, through different layers of reality, through people, through time, whatever you want to call it, it's getting scrambled. And so you may receive pieces of it, which I'm going to go back to receiving 423. And then over time, while allowing more messages to come in, I was given 432. This now, and you can do your own research looking into this because this is new to me in a factual sense, and I don't want to misspeak on things that are so large. But if we are intentional, I think we can learn how to receive the message and decode it. And not just decode it as in it's a piece of stone with carved marks in front of you and you can read what that means, actually embodying that message, learning how to bring that into your own physical self to then alchemize those knowing, belief, values, for me, come through as ethics, and how that wishes to be rebirthed in a new form. So what came through is ocean holding all currents, ima no subete, always zutto, signal, waves, find shore. And so the question is, are you aware of your shoreline or shorelines? Do you know presence where contact will, can, could, may, does make contact? Do you receive, meet, hold, embody, tell, retell? And again, this came on message for person on precipice. Holy damn, I didn't even put that together until this is so cool. This is so cool, dude. I'm pretty sure when I was talking about this precipice, I was talking about standing at the edge of a cliff. And that is literally what I did last night. I got out of my vehicle and I went traipsing through the snow, and it was this, I'll put pictures on Substack and then I'll link that down below. It's all ocean here. Everything is ocean, and there's land here, and that is the end of the land. And here's all land, and there's a few harbors, and then it's just ocean forever. And I came down here, and it's like an inlet, and like the white here, it was all white from just waves crashing and crashing and crashing. And I was a few feet, honestly, I was a couple slippery steps from being inside one end of ocean. And then to tarot, we can go ocean to cups. And I was putting away a reading, and these were not, like, I had all of the deck together. And then the Seven of Wands came first, and I said, well, yes, which is kind of defending what you're saying, you know, and someone speaking from a spiritual place and people coming at him to attack him for that, and actually standing up for what you know, what you believe in, standing up for your faith. And then there's these two, I don't know what they are. And then these two came out and flipped upside right together, the Empress and Queen of Cups. And so all of this felt very fitting. And I decided to come here and talk through all of this. Yeah, I'm still figuring out how I'm choosing to deliver, frame, contain messages, and how I want to talk about this as a person that has a life, that has a professional, public-facing existence, as someone that has been a container for spiritual messaging their whole life, as someone allowing crumbs to fall through this upcoming solar eclipse in Aquarius, because not everything comes with us. The Three of Pentacles and the Six Wow, 3-6. I am getting 360. And I have like known of this in sacred geometry, but I'm also someone who's very wary of organized religion and the connection with angels and archangels. But in what I was learning last night, that was it was almost like a refresher of knowing, recognizing the importance with Metatron's cube. And so this may be a message that is from Metatron, which I know people have connections with Archangel Michael. Although I am not someone who has those same pathways ingrained in my brain and knowing, so I'm hesitant to address angelic entities. But it does feel like this is for me to... I'm hearing like to write a return address on the mail. Going from URL to logging in with the passcode, now going back to analog. Going back to paper. And with the shift that is coming. Okay, I think I think anything more than that, and I am pushing. Whereas this has been a breeze carried along an oceaned body. Yeah. So I will leave this message here. I think I will share this with you, and we will continue this conversation another time.